Every hour, 1,004 deaf new people born and 620 blind people come to the world. Many people ask me that you are a sound engineer. Why are you working for people that cannot hear? I am classical musician since I am seven years old because I always thought that music was a gift.
Okay.
I was in school, I remember so much, I was a very shy kid. Once I knew the music, the guitar, that totally changed. And I always consider that was my mission to return at least a little bit part of that gift. I made a software that can create images with the music that I was playing. We realized that have a very powerful potential for deaf people because with some training, they can know visually what is happening in terms of sound about their surroundings.
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow, and we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact. Before we start, I would like to thank our partner MADA, the Assistive Technology Center of Qatar, that helped make this episode possible. Hi everyone, and for today's episode, I'm inviting a very special guest, Hugo, representing the startup Talov, all the way from Quito, Ecuador. Hi Hugo, thanks for joining us.
Hello everyone. Hi Alize, how are you?
I'm doing good. So the last time we saw each other actually was in Morocco in December, where you were announced one of the finalists of the MADA Accessibility Prize. But before we jump into kind of the whole story, your story, the journey of your company till today, I thought it would be so nice if you could introduce yourself with why you built Talov, and then maybe explain to the audience what is Talov, because it's such a it's such an emotional story every time I hear it.
Yeah. Well, with Carlos Obando, my co-founder, we founded Talov just to bring happiness to people. That's like the warm purpose under the technology. But how we can bring happiness to people? We were making a lot of research several years ago, and we found that in that research process that technology can help people with disabilities to have more independence for their daily life. So there was a moment where we decided to quit our jobs, to quit everything we knew until that, and to start something big from the scratch.
And did you so maybe explain to us now what exactly is the technology you're providing?
Okay, Talov is using the artificial intelligence that is a very like common thing nowadays to help people with disabilities. For example, to blind people, we help them with the image of the camera, of the phone camera. The artificial intelligence start to learn everything that the camera can watch. So notify the blind person about objects, distance, currency bills, can read text and everything about that. So are like a help in common tasks or daily life tasks that usually can be a very difficult challenge for them. And for deaf people, for example, artificial intelligence in the phone can help them to know what's happening around them in terms of sound surroundings. For example,
Mm.
alarms, baby crying, doorbells, vehicles, I don't know, even the music or different kind of music. And also can transcribe all the human voices around them in 35 languages. So they can know what's happening around, what people is saying around them. It's very important. because they usually want to be like integrated in a conversation. So if they are deaf and people is using the spoken language, it's very hard to integrate to a dialogue or a conversation. And also the application allows them using a very tiny sensor in the wrist, a motion sensor,
Okay.
to use their sign language because it's their native language. They don't have to abandon it. Their sign language, and that sensor catch the movements, the artificial intelligence process that, and the cell phone start to speaking
And
what
so
they are.
it's quite clear to me for deaf people how easily, so you activate the application and then you can quickly get notification on your screen with the surroundings, and on top, as you mentioned, with the bracelets, with kind of that smart what you're able to also speak to people who would on their end have the application also, correct?
Mhm.
And for however how, because for me, in terms of for blind people, so if you walk around using it so you can be notified on the surroundings, objects, how, where is the phone exactly, like how do you walk with it, how easy is it to be transportable, if I may say so?
Yeah, that was a very heavy concern for us when designing the
Mm,
application for blind people, because there are two apps, no? One for deaf people, one for blind people.
okay, yeah.
Specifically about the application for blind people, yeah, usually they have one hand like working with the cane, yeah, like the
Okay, yes, yes, yes.
yeah. On the other hand, yeah, we were actually like, they have to be with the one free hand, because if you have in one hand your stick and in another hand your cell phone,
Phone,
it's
yeah.
quite like difficult. Okay, so yeah, um, in this meantime, we were looking for like kind of solutions where you can use the identifications when you go to
Mm-hmm.
Star 7. It's like a plastic bag here, so
Yeah.
the phone can be here. It's one option that we consider just temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
because we are working to make it our application compatible with some gadgets like this, like my glasses, but have a little HD camera here. Okay, these glasses are connected to earbuds, so the
Yes.
person, the processor of the application, that is the phone, it's in the pocket, but the camera, the sensor, it's in their, almost in their forehead. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
so so they can
Interesting.
move with freedom. They can turn their head, so they are receiving notifications here
Mm.
about what the glasses are watching in real time all the time. So that's
And
something we are working on right now.
how, I still find it impressive how you came down to tackle such a problem. So there are many challenges across so many industries. How did you narrow yourself down in um, these type of challenges that many people are facing? I mean, please give the numbers again, because I had no clue how big this was a mainstream problem for so many people. But I'm still fascinated on how you came down to wanting to launch Talov and not another business.
Yeah. Okay. I will start by the numbers. And
Mm,
really impressive. 470 million people in the world are deaf, and
wow.
290 million are blind. That means a grand total of 760 million people could be like the second or third country of the world in terms
Mm,
of just population.
population.
And every hour, 1,004 deaf new people born and 620 blind people come to the world every hour. So it's a very big challenge. It's
Wow. And sorry, is this number going up? Is
yeah,
this
this
due to
number.
current society, or is it just because we have the data now?
I think it's because we have the data now. I think it's
Okay.
that. But in terms of percentage, joining hearing impairment and blind and visual impairment, it's almost a 4% of new people that is burning, that comes with some kind of impairment in terms of visual or hearing one. So these have very, very, very different causes.
Yes. Yeah, it's a large spectrum of
Yeah,
people that find themselves in visual impairment and listening impair or hearing
or
impairment. You say,
hearing
yeah.
impairment. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a very big spectrum, and of course we don't have to forget that all of us, while we get older, start losing
Yes.
our hearing and our visual. So probably when we are like elder people, we will have that. It's
Yes,
probable.
it's funny. It's actually everyone's problem in a way because we're all getting old, and it's still one of the major kind of elderly conditions that we need to really consider. You, me, everyone. Absolutely, you're right. We tend to forget
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and actually that's why I'm using this, because first the first thing that we start to lose is our visual, our visual ability, because of the screens of the little characters when we are reading, and all of that start to affect. Then comes
Okay.
the
Okay,
hearing.
so I need to reduce my screen time for sure. In these times, it's not easy, but I'll keep
Not
that
easy.
in mind. I just because I sometimes feel ashamed. Why am I not thinking of all these people? And how did you from Ecuador? What was that? Because you were also a sound engineer as as background. So did that also narrow down your thought process of what challenge you would want to focus on? Is it your because you have so many people around you with such disabilities and it was something you felt personally was a mission? I'm just very impressed.
Yeah, actually, many people ask me that you are a sound engineer. Why are you working for people that cannot hear? It's like,
True.
what's going on? And I always say, yeah, it have a 100% of sense, and it's important to tell like the behind story of all of this.
Mm,
I am classical musician since I am 7 years old, 6 years old. I don't remember the exactly date, but I am a classical guitarist, and then I started to play flamenco music also because
okay.
I am a very I am very passionate about the guitar music. I was very lucky to know and have like a personal admiration and relation with very famous guitarists along my life, and all of that um, affected me, not in a negative way, affected in positive way. I don't know how to say, like impressed my life. Okay, impacted my life, because I always thought that music was a gift.
Okay.
I was in school. I remember so much. I was a very, very, very shy kid, extremely shy kid. And of course, when somebody uh, usually told me, "Please, can you speak about this topic?" and I was like, "Oh my god," totally ashamed, totally, you know.
Yeah,
But
completely blocked, like you
well,
froze.
yeah, frozen because I was very shy. But
Mm,
once I knew the music, the guitar, that totally changed it. Music for me was a gift to
it empowered
give
you.
me a voice, helped me, yeah, a lot, a lot, a lot. And I always consider that was my mission to return at least a little bit part of that gift. And of course, the first years was okay. I know music. I have to make concerts, like bring happiness to the people, like play some beautiful things, that kind of aspects. But then when when I was in high school, actually with my co-founder, with Carlos, we met in the high school several
Mm.
years ago. When we were 13 years old, a teacher showed us C++ programming language. So we were like, oh yeah, this is funny. This is cool. And we started to make some code, but like kids play games and that kind of
Yeah,
things. But we continued over the years. We continue developing and knowing more about the language, more about the computer science, and then uh, a lot of years later, when we were actually finishing our engineerings, Carlos was in mechatronics engineering, I was in acoustics engineering. um, I made a thesis work. I don't know if it's the correct term, thesis work, like the final graduation exam.
thesis. Yeah, yeah, thesis.
I made a software that can create images um, with the music that I was playing. So
Mm.
if I improvise, I don't have to be like limited to a structure. So if I start improvising, the software will generate images with me. But then we realized that have a very powerful potential for deaf people because with some training, they can know visually what is happening in terms of sound about their surroundings.
Of course.
And then came a lot of, because of that work, then came a lot of national TV uh,
Coverage.
coverage, yeah. And then we started to, in 2016, after some of that coverage, we joined it with Carlos and say, what you have potential, has potential. Carlos was working in mobile applications, but social, with social purpose. And we were like, okay, several, so many years from 2018, 2008 to 2016, 8 years of a lot of independent research. We have something here, and we have to join this. So we quit our jobs. We were university professors, and then we started Talov from scratch.
I love it because um, people always see this the founding date of a company. And when you go in the depth of the story of a founder, you realize, I mean, you started at, I mean, it started at 8 years old with your passion of music, which then started at 13, where you built an expertise in coding, which then you were able to evolve into a product. In many ways, you're giving music visually to those that can't hear it. It's super powerful. So it's a long journey. It's a long journey.
Long journey.
um, Speaking of how long it is, let's start at the end. Where does Talov stand today? Where are you? Who are your customers? How many customers do you have? Give us a perspective of where you stand.
Okay, now more than 7,000 people have downloaded our applications, but
Mm-hmm.
from them, 2.3 thousand are subscribers. Okay, not
Okay.
all the people that download the app becomes a subscriber. So those 2.3 thousand are in 86 countries because our applications are compatible with 35 languages. So that helps to spread.
86. Wow.
86 countries until 1 hour ago that I checked the list because we are always checking that. And but the main territories are Asia Pacific, Europe,
Okay.
North America, and of course Latin America, but have like less number of users in Latin America. The most of the users are actually in Europe and Asia Pacific,
How
China,
come?
Thailand, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and many countries like in this
But
that zone.
do you know why? Why is it because there's competition Latin America? Is it a stigma? Is it costly to distribute? Like, what would be the reasoning?
It's like something like hard to say, or something that could be polemic, but it's the truth. In Latin America, disabilities are often related with extreme poverty,
Okay.
and that have like a chain, because if you don't give a person with disability the opportunity to study, it's very difficult for that people to access to the job circuit. And
Absolutely.
if can access to any job, it's highly probable that job it's not like aligned with their academic background.
Hmm.
So usually the salaries are very low and that kind of things. Also, I think that Latin America is still a not very um, mature territory, mature
Yeah.
in terms of technological access, like Europe, like Asia,
Asia, for sure.
North America. So that's why our applications are more present in that kind of territories. We think that they have like more access to technology first.
Mm.
Second, probably Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America have a different approach to disabilities, or for people with disabilities. They consider them in a more respectful way, and
Mm.
that helps a lot to have like a more receptive public for our technology.
Understood. Understood. And did you, to get these first downloads, did you have to push it, or was it such a need that it came organically?
No, we made in the first stage. We of course, I think that we gained like how to say, like awareness could be,
Yes.
because of the contest. We won a contest in Ecuador, another in United States, so that helped a little bit to spread our message. But then we started to make like digital marketing strategies, but
Mm-hmm.
very concentrated in the stores. We make a lot of ads in the app stores, because yeah, people with disabilities have told us in many times that
Mm-hmm.
the main way that they use to find the applications are going to the store and type, for example, blind or deaf, and
Yeah.
some applications came in that search, and they choose the first, second, or third. So we have to be always like in the first places. So we are always
Interesting.
working on that.
And are you speaking directly, when you think of your consumer, to the ones with these disabilities, and concretely are looking for solutions to increase their independence and also their capability to socialize with our infrastructures, which don't always support them and consider them? Or is it more the parents or the children for their parents that are aging? Yeah, do you have that intermediate conversation, like you could imagine in education? Many times the target is the parents, so that you're able to have your solution used by the children. Who is your audience today?
Yeah, our audience, well, it tends to be like more younger people, because have to be like more connected to apps and mobiles and
Okay.
technology.
Yeah.
But usually are the people that have the disability and is looking
Hmm.
for a solution for themselves, and also parents with children that have a hearing impairment or a visual impairment,
Yes.
that are trying to help them in their educational process, or their improvements of independence. So it's like both people that buys for themselves, and people that want to gift to a beloved person this technology.
And maybe stepping back, looking at your business, and more generally as a founder launching a business in Ecuador, um, how easy was it for you, uh, especially with the professor background? Even though, I mean, you have this very entrepreneurial spirit since the start, but what could we imagine of the do's and don'ts in Ecuador to start a business?
Well, yeah, it's a country like very hard. Just like some anecdote could be.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We
my
love
my
anecdotes. Go
my
ahead.
first startup. I had always this entrepreneurship spirit, and I always tell this with because it's funny. My first startup was at 8 or 9 years old.
Hmm.
I was in love with Jurassic Park series. I remember, and I started to draw, and a classmate of mine was painting the dinosaurs, and we started to sell them in the school until the directors told us, "Hey, no, that's illegal in the school. That's not
No way.
legal." So
How many were you able to sell?
I didn't remember. Probably a couple of dollars because in that time Ecuador has actually another currency. I don't
Currency, yeah.
remember, but I remember that we probably sold like, I don't know, 50 drawings probably.
Good. Good.
So I had always that spirit of making things different. And in Ecuador, I think it's very hard to start, especially a tech company, because here the laws, the regulations, and all that things are like more adapted to our traditional industries. Ecuador is well known for chocolates, for bananas, for shrimps, and for our tourism, but not for tech.
For sure. For sure.
So that's very very hard. When we founded Talov in 2016, actually just the legal process to set up the company and that kind of things was a mess. So looking for capital here, it's very very difficult
Yeah.
because, as I said, the regulation not consider, for example, the possibility to make a safe.
Wow.
When you tell people, we use, for example, a safe, or we want to use this structure for funding the people that is in charge of issuing regulations, always are with a face like, what is a
Yeah.
safe? And we are like, oh my god. We
So
have
you
to.
on top as a founder need to educate the investment space and save, so these typical shareholder agreements, it's just not at all uh,
Yeah,
mainstream, or people don't even know how to operate around that.
yeah, just
So
in the.
so how do you manage, like where are you incorporated? I imagine your funding until now is international, and until the ecosystem matures more, correct?
Yeah, that's why we took the decision to incorporate first, okay, in Ecuador because we born here and we were here in that time, so there is a legal entity here in Ecuador.
For sure.
But then in late 2019, like a couple of months ago, we finished our process to incorporate in the United States.
Mm,
So we have now the company outside Ecuador, and we found that looking for another like possibilities, and we are realizing that that was a very smart step to to make things different. We think that we can help our country better from being outside.
mm,
It's
mm,
like
mm.
ironic, but it's that how it works.
True, and most Latin American founders will align with you on where they're how they're operating their scale, because if not, it's actually it has the risk of ending the company, which is exactly what we don't want.
Yeah, but for example, all have like pros and cons. And
Mm,
one pro of being in Ecuador, for example, for us is that it's a tiny market where you can like make testing really really fast. You can
okay.
obtain results very very fast. So we use like the advantage and the disadvantage of every situation to learn the most of each one of them, and try to gather data to make the best decision possible in any moment.
It's interesting because, you know, earlier when you were representing this whole community of visually and hearing impaired people around the world, it's as if you're tackling, even though it's a global population dispersed around, you mentioned over 60 countries your customers are in. You maybe, is this true? Do you have the advantage to at least target one profile? And because it's digital and it's an app and it's non-invasive, you could actually, when you talk about marketing and surveying in Ecuador, it's extremely representative to your consumer in Asia or Europe, or in the Middle East? Or do you have to customize and figure out a whole new strategy, a whole new localized product every time? Because suddenly it feels like you really can tackle 700 million people's same problem. Or am I naive and it's very, very different problems?
I think all the world share the same problem. For example, moving into their cities in a safer way,
Yes.
um, reading a text when they want to go to a library or the university, and for deaf people want to integrate to a conversation or like understanding the teacher in the class. Those scenarios are the same for all the world, so
Mm,
they share the same challenge. What they don't share is the language. So that's why
exactly.
we work at the very, very hard to make our applications compatible with those 35 languages. So that helped us a lot to like standardize our application in all of the world. We usually are in contact with our users mainly by email and
Mm,
translators and that kind of things, because they always told us, for example, one person I remember that he was from, let me remember, Hungary could be,
mm-hmm.
and he told us, hey, thanks for this app. For example, I have I have a very heavy problem for me. The bills are
Yes.
all the same weight, the same texture, and I cannot with my fingers know which, if it's a €5 or €500. So
Mm,
people usually rob me when they give the change. Okay,
yeah.
so it was exactly the same problem of our users here in Ecuador with the dollars. Okay,
Mm,
Ecuador now have dollars, but the previous currency, sucres, was exactly the same issue. So we realized all the world start to feel like the same problems, and we have like a common solution that we only have to localize in terms of languages, but
exactly.
works for everybody. So yeah,
That's
for us,
super
Ecuador
powerful.
Ecuador is like our laboratory to test that things and then launch in many languages to all the stores.
And before you were saying that one big reason why you were able to spread the word so efficiently was the kind of visibility you were able to gain through different competitions or events that you had participated in. And it's great because for you were also part of the Seedstars World competition, and more specifically linked to the MADA Assistive Technology Center from Qatar initiative to give a prize to those that are providing a digital access for all. And I wanted to know, is has have you already felt the momentum of such a prize, because you're now part of the finalists, you were presented in Morocco, you work you work and are in collaboration closely with the team in Qatar. Has that um, already spilled positive effects?
Yes, of course, very powerful effects because as we
Okay.
are always looking to gain traction outside of our country and even outside our region, uh, being in Seedstars, I remember that we won 2018 Seedstars
Yes,
local competition
in Ecuador,
in
exactly.
Ecuador. And since that moment started actually our international expansion. We had previously experience in Web Summit in 2017. We were top 200 most innovative startups at Web Summit. We were selected by Mercedes-Benz, and then started like the first step. But the second step, winning the Seedstars local competition, and then the next year being in Switzerland, uh, was for us like a boost in terms of
Okay.
international awareness, and then started, um, for example, media of Europe, or of United States to call us and to say, "Oh, what are you doing? We are interested in that." And yeah, being part of the Seedstars family for us was really a very big boost of awareness, of knowledge about other startups. And the main thing that I will always say thank you to Seedstars, it's the opportunity to learn so much. That for us
Wow.
is the core of what we are doing, learning. Because humans often think that we know everything and we can do this, and when you are in that ocean of possibilities, you realize that you are a very, very tiny ant, and
Mm.
you have to learn and study a lot. So with it,
Always. Never stop.
we yeah, we had that opportunity to learn international, to learn about what is happening in all the world with that vibrant community of entrepreneurs.
It brings so much warmth to my heart because you said like the two keywords that we at Seedstars team are working so hard for is making every entrepreneur feel like they're part of a family. So when you said Seed Stars family, I was like, yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the fact that the most important impact was the learning part, because for us, yeah, it's continuous growth of the business. It doesn't stop at one funding round. It doesn't stop at one event. It doesn't stop at one article. If not, we would know it if it was that easy to thrive such businesses. And maybe to talk about specifically your business and many of the businesses that we support, in Europe and the States especially, they come under this umbrella of social entrepreneurship, impact driven businesses, which sometimes we're fine to have our initiative brought under these terminologies. But for us, it's more just, I mean, try to do a business and create jobs anywhere for all the challenges at stake. That's social by default for us. But it's true that you're tackling maybe what is still not seen as a sexy industry for the venture capital space, or a market that is still not clearly known, even though you're anything but a local business as you presented. How is it for you to manage this balance of profit and purpose? Is it an issue for you to convince investors, or have you seen a shift in mentality in the past years?
Yeah, actually, I think that's the most difficult part.
Mm.
Most difficult, more difficult even than developing the software, is changing the mindset. That is very, very, very hard. And especially, for example, with investors. Yeah, you are right. In the beginning, I used to think it's probably that I am doing something wrong, or I am in the
Mm.
wrong industry because no investors call us. Sorry, no investors listen us, and I don't know. Probably I'm wrong. But then we realized, actually, yesterday I was in a meeting with some Mexican friends that are working also in terms of accessibility, and they told us, don't worry, you are not wrong. The industry is still don't understand what's your mission.
Yes,
Additionally, to make it profitable, yes, that's
that's
like
much better.
logical. Okay, it's logical to make a business profitable, because if not, it's not sustainable and soon will end. Okay, but
Absolutely.
under the hood, and probably most important for that, it's the desire to change positively, or to make a positive impact in a community that had always like almost been forgotten. So the industry, the common industry, it's not well prepared for that. And one of our mission in terms of social entrepreneurship is also to educate our public,
Of course.
investors, and other entrepreneurs, even our team. Why you are working here? Okay, you are working just to have a job? No, you are working here to change one person life, and that passion have to push you to give them um, to work with the most of you. So that kind of education has been very hard for us, but we are in the road. We continue working for that. For example, one of Talov core missions, it's to have at least the half of the team that have any impairment.
Yes, that's what I was
One
going
of
to
our
ask.
goals.
How are you proving that it's a possible scenario? So, y- h- as of today, do you have team members with such disabilities, and how are you getting yourself to that 50%? If yeah, tell us, because I realize at Seedstars we don't, and it's definitely my ignorance. But could you give us tips on how we could be more inclusive with such talents?
Okay, for example, we are a small team.
Yes.
So when you are a small team, could be like easier to accomplish that numbers, because our goal is very ambitious, 50%.
Mm,
So in a five-person team, actually we have two people. One people is Diana. She is blind from their born,
since she was born. Okay. Yeah.
since she was born, and but she is a great social communicator, and she managed all our social media. She is the community manager, and of course she has a lot of experience for helping us and guide us in terms of product design and test for blind people.
For sure.
The other guy, Eric, he's a deaf person since he was born, and but he's an amazing photographer. So he helped us a lot with the web page colors, the image, the design, that kind of things, and of course product design and test for blind for deaf people. And some tips that we are always looking for is that it's very important for people with disabilities to feel, for example, like included. For a deaf person, that means in sometimes that somebody can use the technology or use sign language to ask that person about their academic background, for example. Not
Mm,
just having like this basic mindset that I have seen a lot, for example, in our country. You think, oh, he's deaf, he probably don't know how to do this. Okay, you have to do this, but you don't give even the opportunity to know what
what
is
are
the,
their
yeah, what they studied, what are they were doing before this job. So ask them about their academic background, ask them about their abilities,
mm,
and try to help them to explode that abilities in a field that they feel comfortable. So I know that, for example, in many spaces, I mean the buildings or the offices and that kind of things, it's very important to be more inclusive with small details like having all the buttons,
yeah.
the labels in braille system, have all all the labels also in sign language, and that kind of small details make them feel more comfortable, and they can open their heart to collaborate in a very good way, because it's common, because they have suffered along the history, they have suffered exclusion, and
Mm,
they usually are like I don't know, like little bit closed. They probably have fear to enter in a
mm,
space and try to make the first step. So it's our goal to make them feel like part of the family, and then the results are amazing. We started doing that with these people that joined us, to talk with them, to help them, to make jokes with them, and then step by step, we discovered that they have an academic background so huge. They are they have so valuable abilities that we already needed: a social communicator, a
yeah,
community manager, a web designer, a photographer. That for us was very, very, very valuable, and better if it's with a person that have the disability and have the opportunity to teach us, because we are always learning from them.
for sure. I think it's actually Mada that was very good in pointing to us that we were far from being um, an accessible platform. And so we really need to push ourselves at Seedstars also, when we think of our events, when we think of these communications as these podcasts. How can we make it more inclusive? We're still at the beginning of learning it, but it's true there are really good guidelines out there to help you figure out what are the first step of having an inclusive digital platform, so that they can participate in all these activities. Um, we're not there yet, so I have to be very honest, we're far from it, and there's a lot to do, but you're right. And I think there is this sense of, but at Seedstars we have a great gender balance, we have a great nationality balance, but everyone has their level of exclusive, how do I say the opposite of inclusive, like you feel like you're doing a good job until you realize you're missing out on a whole uh, minority, on a whole class of people and citizens that have the same interests as you. And so I think there's no company that cannot say that they've hit the inclusive targets. We always will be having to think of how can we engage with a larger community. And it's for us, it's speaking to you and engaging with companies like you that we realize that we're far from it actually. So thank you for opening our eyes, huh? Because there's still a lot of work to do on our end, and there's still a lot of ignorance from our end.
No, no worries. But we think in the same way. We are
Yeah.
still so far.
Mm,
Even working in that field, we are still so far. And the more companies engage with this mission, the more like wellness and happiness will be for everyone. So that's why we always use that little phrase behind our name: accessible technology for everyone. And everyone means
everyone.
disabilities, means another kind of impairments. It's not just one field. It's a very huge spectrum of things that companies around the world have to tackle, have to work on that, to give like better days to a lot of people. Because once we realize about the numbers, then just we say, oh my God, it's like I don't know, could be the third country of the world in
Yeah,
terms of
it's
population,
huge.
just with two impairments, not even considering all of the impairments, just two.
Absolutely.
And according, for example, to United Nations, there are some other big numbers that we are always are looking every day, because United Nations say that just the impact for world economy every year about their lack of access to decent job and decent salaries and that kind of things, their no presence in the job's general world circuit, have an impact of 1,400 billion every year.
Wow.
That could be like twice the GDP of countries like Switzerland or Arabia
Wow.
every
Yeah.
year. And it's a very important issue to tackle.
And so maybe so now it's I have a more of a short list of Q&A, if I may say so, that we ask to all our guests. But I think it's a perfect transition to what you just said with this huge number given um, by the World Bank. Where are you heading? What's if you had to give a number, a feeling, a sense of what is the impact you want to achieve 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the line? What does it look like?
Okay, we have realized, for example, from that 760 million blind and deaf people, according to International Telecommunication Unit, just 30% have a smartphone. So we are speaking about 230 million. And of
Hmm.
course, that could be like an addressable market, a more real number. And we want to reach the 1% of that market in the next 5 years. 1%, it's a tiny number, but for us means having 2.3 million users. So it's
Mm,
not so tiny considering the size of the world numbers. Um, Speaking about numbers, of course, but I think that our mission will be done the day that I can travel to a very, very, very far territory from mine and see a blind person using our technology and a deaf person using our technology and see how it helps. In that day, I will say, okay, despite of the numbers of the income of the whatever, my mission
I
was
made
done
it.
because I changed one life. So I made it.
And what are your core values that probably are in your personal life like your professional life? If you could give 1 or 2 examples of the core values.
Core values, like what, for example, like sincerity.
Company values, for example.
Oh, company values. First, inclusion,
Mm.
definitely, respect, and how to say, like efficient evolution, because we are
Okay.
a tech company and we have to
Mm.
make an efficient evolution. The world runs so fast that we have to be in that, and we have like competitors, um, companies like, I will say that I pronounce that names with a lot of wow fear, not fear, like fascination. Our competitors are Google, Microsoft. So we are like an ant besides an elephant, and, uh, and that push us to be extremely efficient with our work. So that helps
Absolutely.
us because we are a very, very tiny ship that can turn or pivot direction very fast. And we know that they are like extremely big ship,
Giants.
giant ship, so they can take a little bit more time to pivot or make a turn in
Interesting.
the.
Efficient evolution. I had never thought of it this way.
You have to be
maybe
very.
for maybe for our audience, do you have a podcast, a documentary, or a book that you could recommend?
For example, the lean startup for me, it's a very, it's like the Bible.
So it really helped you kick off.
Yeah, it really
And
helps.
yeah, you're
Another
right.
thing that I was reading recently was some things like the story behind people like Elon Musk, that kind of
Mm.
people that start from very, very, very small things to make like huge ventures. And yeah, about entrepreneurship. But most of the time, I always am reading about arts, computer science. I love the novels. So I am always reading like things not so related with a startup, because I am like 24 hours of the
In
day
it.
in it. So I need like something different, and I usually read a lot of about arts, about music, about Beethoven, Mozart, Paco de Lucia. That actually I had the opportunity to know him personally and send one of my recordings and that kind of things.
So
I
yeah,
try to
you
disconnect a little bit.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, Maybe so. What word or quote describes you best?
It's something like, "Do you have free? Sorry, do you have fear? Okay, make it with fear,
Hmm.
but don't let that the fear stops you."
Okay.
It's that.
Interesting. Is that a saying in Ecuador?
In Ecuador, yeah, in Spanish, I have heard, not here in Ecuador. Actually, I have heard like in Mexico, in some other territories, that phrase that in Spanish is "Tienes miedo? Hazlo con miedo." So do you have
Nice, interesting. You
do it
have
with
fear, then go with fear, but go, do
yeah,
it, make
do
it
it,
happen.
just do it, make it happen. Yeah, it's like the Mexican proverb about sisters. I love it. I really love it. It's amazing. It's so impacting.
Yeah, it's what we feel every day because and as you mentioned before, this constant kind of the obstacles that any entrepreneur faces actually. And so the quote goes, which is a Mexican proverb, they tried to bury us, but they did not know we were seeds.
Wow, it's
um,
amazing.
and so and last question is, as you know, you are one of our heroes. We'd love to know, who is your hero or one of your heroes?
My first heroes are my parents, of course, because all
Mm.
that I am, I am because of them, because they have taught me from the very, very beginnings of my life about the readings, about the arts, about how to help people, about that kind of things. And I was obviously, I think, a seed. So,
So they helped you
and
grow.
yeah, and my other hero in terms, not in entrepreneurship world, but in what is my core. My core is being a musician. That's my human core. It's Paco de Lucia, the most
Hmm.
amazing guitarist the world has ever listened. And yeah, I am still listening his recordings, like recordings from 30 years ago, and still I am breaking my head trying to decode them, and trying to how this man did this, how he was very like how you say, when you are in the future but being in the past, when you do things that
So in many ways, he was very visionary.
a visionary, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
even
the
in
word.
his music. Wow. It's
And
fascinating. I mean,
one of
I could go on for hours to ask you questions, but we do have to come to an end, and we really hope that Talov continues to thrive. Soon we'll be announcing much more on the company, where it's heading. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please stay tuned for more, as we'll be releasing everyday news stories of entrepreneurs around the world that are really trying to change the status quo in their markets, with a real sense of going forward with or without fear, which Hugo has proved to us today with his story. So thank you, Hugo, again for your time. And we're so happy you're part of the Seedstars family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Seedstars, Alice. I am also honored to be part of this family and very happy to share with people our mistakes, our success, and our learnings, of course. And
Thank you.
obviously, I felt like in home. I enjoyed a lot talking with you. I can be speaking, as you said, hours with you, and hope this helps to inspire people to do it despite the fear. Just do it, make it
Absolutely.
happen, as you said.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.